Alright, today we are doing a lesson on compound inequalities. It is basically a little bit our next step in graphing inequalities on the number line. You did multi-step multi-step inequalities, and now we're doing what's called compound inequalities, and all that means is that you're going to do two or more. And in this case, we're only going to be doing two, but it's two or more inequalities. Graph together. On the same number line. Alright, so the first one, we have two different types we're going to be working on. One of them is the OR statements, and another one is called the AND, which is on the back of your notes. So all we're going to do is follow along, write a couple notes, practice a bunch of problems, and then you'll be working on an assignment afterwards. Alright, so for instance, let's say, alright, so here's the number line already filled out, and we want to write in what are the inequalities. So, if we do the one on the left here, this is just x is less than or equal to -4. Remember that if it's filled in, that means you put equal to, and all these numbers are less than -4. So that's where I got that from. Or this piece starts at 1, but remember it's open dot, so that means we're not going to do equal to. And this time we're doing things that are greater than it. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Now, when you do interval notation, you have to take into account the gap that's in between these two graphs. So what you're going to do here, you're going to use what's called a union symbol. Okay, you're kind of uniting the two, and you're telling the person, hey, these two things go together, but have to be written separately because there's no overlap. All right, so the first thing you're going to write, remember if we practice this, you put your negative infinity here, positive infinity there, and you're going to write this piece, and then you're going to write this piece, and then we're going to, like I said, we're going to put something in between it. If you want to, you can actually put that symbol in. It's the union symbol, which again looks like a U for union. So you're going to write this one, then union, then this piece. Okay, so this piece, remember, is negative infinity with a parenthesis on it, all the way up to -4. And because we're including number -4, remember we use a bracket. And we got our union symbol, And then our next thing we're going to start off at -1, since we're not including it. Then we have a parenthesis. And then we're going all the way to infinity. And that's how you'd write that. So when you have two pieces, you have to write it with a union. And then when we do and, you'll see something else. Okay. Okay. So all you're doing now, excuse me. All right. So we're going to do the first problem. Again, these are all. Let me see if I can move my lights, or maybe even turn it off. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see how good my iris is. Yeah, let's try that out. That might work. Because I'm trying to not cast a shadow. Alright, so if we solve this, we're going to do -4 from both sides. And then divide by 3. So x is less than or equal to 2. Okay. So again, less than or equal to 2 means we're going to be on the 2. Now what I would do is go on the 2, and then we're going to go to the left. Okay, let's solve this one. 5x is greater than 45. Excuse me, greater than, I put less than. Let's fix that. All right, divided by 5. X is greater than 9. So 9 is right over here, barely on here. And we're open dotting that. And we're going to the left. Or excuse me, to the right. Whatever left. I love being sick. Alright, so my interval notation, again, put a big U here to remind yourself you have a union between these two. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, again, we go from negative infinity to positive infinity. So we're going to go negative infinity with a parenthesis all the way up to 2, and we're including 2, so put a bracket, then the u, and then parenthesis because we are not standing on the 9 this time, and we're going all the way to infinity. That's how it works. Okay, so really that's all there is to this. I don't really need to do too many of these. Let's do number 3, and then you guys, it's a nice short lesson. You guys don't have to do all of these because they're just more difficult problems. That's all they are. Okay, actually I'll do this one, and then I'll do this one because the fraction, then we'll call it a day. Alright, so I gotta turn the light on a little bit because it's dark for me. So, there, I can see a little bit better for me. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 8. Negative y is less than or equal to negative 15. Divide by a negative 3. What happens when you divide by a negative 3 with inequalities? You have to flip the symbol. Don't forget to do that. That will mess you up royally if you forget. And negative 15 divided by negative 3 is 5. So my first graph is greater than or equal to 5. So here's 5 right here. So I'm putting a closed dot and going to my right. Okay, 10y minus 3, negative 33. Add 3 to both sides. Divide by, now since I divided by a positive 10 this time, I do not change the symbol. I get y is less than or equal to negative 3, so that's over here, and I am including that as well. Okay, and I'm going to the left. Alright, again, put a union, put an infinity, negative infinity on there, so you can help write your interval notation. Okay, so I'm going from negative infinity with a parenthesis all the way up to negative 3 with a bracket because I'm including it. Use a union, and then in this particular case, 5 is also being filled in, so we use a bracket again, and we go all the way up to infinity with a parenthesis. Remember, infinities never, ever, ever get brackets. You always use parentheses. Alright, so I'm not going to do 4 entirely. I just want to kind of touch upon how to make sure. There's a couple of problems or things that you need to watch out for in this one. This one is, I've got multiplication as my last step, and this one I have to watch out because of the negative, right? So a lot of you guys, when you're doing these things, you tend to mess up on these because you read the minus sign and you add 6 to both sides instead of subtracting, because the negative is on the 2, not on the 6. So to get rid of that 6, I would subtract 6. Okay, when you do that, remember this is gone, so you're left with negative 2a. It's less than, looks like 2. Remember that I'm dividing by a negative. So if I do that, I have to change the symbol around, and that's going to give me negative 1. So x is greater than negative 1. Okay, so open dot at negative 1 and greater going to the right. Alright, next problem. A over 2 plus 1 is less than negative 2. Get rid of the 1. A over 2 is less than negative 3. Now just remember this is a division problem, so how do you get rid of division? Multiplication. So I multiply both sides by 2. Now notice I multiplied by a positive number. I didn't divide or multiply by a negative number, so therefore I leave the symbol alone. So I get A is less than negative 6. So I find negative 6, I'm not including negative 6, and I'm going to the left. Again, next thing you do is throw in your infinities and your u. Okay, so the first one's going to be parenthesis, negative infinity, all the way up to negative 6, and because it's not filled in, that's a parenthesis as well, a union, and then we're starting off at negative 1. Also not bracketed, and going all the way to infinity. So in this case we have no brackets whatsoever because everybody's Now again, remember, for mathematicians, this means that I can go all the way up to -6, but I can't include -6. So in this case, this would be like -6.00000001. Like I can go right out all the way up to -6, but I can't step on -6. Example, this one would be -1 point, no, point, actually I can go the other way, so it'd be 0.999999999 negative. As long as I don't step on that -1, I am good to go. Okay, so that's why they, excuse me, you do open dots, because you can approach that number, you just can't actually land on it. All right, and that's it for the lesson. So what you're going to do now is you're going to do, that's it for the ors anyway. So we're going to jump now to the ands, which are the back for you. Okay, so ands are done a little bit differently. Okay, ands look like little line segments. Okay, that means they've got some overlap. Okay, so for instance, with this one, if we write this, it's going to look like this. -2, because it starts at -2 and ends at, looks like 5. So -2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 5. Okay, that's what it would compound it. Basically, it's two of them in one. It's like, here's the first one. X, it looks like -2 is less than or equal to x. So that would be any number in here. So that would be going on forever in this direction, right? Anything bigger than, basically x is bigger than -2. So that would be all of this. And if I read this, x is less than -5, it would be like all of these. So what this is saying is I am x and I'm stuck between -2 and 5. That's what this means. Okay? What does that mean in interval notation? Well, now we don't have any infinities. There's no infinities in this. Even if you were to write negative infinity and positive infinity like you're used to, the graph doesn't hit either one of those. So that's not included in this. And because you have equal to's, actually, I'm now seeing, as I'm zoomed in a little bit there, and we'll think that's filled in. So this is not an equal to. That's my bad, because I didn't see that until just now. If I zoom in, it's not filled in. Okay, so then you're going to do this. So it's -2 with a bracket, and it's going all the way up to 5 with a parenthesis. And that's what that would look like. So there's no negative. So it's a short term, one thing. There's no u's or anything like that in it. Okay. So also can be written two different ways. But again, this is the overlap. So if I let me just graph and show you what I mean. Okay, so that first one that I was showing you, the x is greater than -2. That looks like this. Okay. Now, if I were to do x is less than 5, then I would do this. Okay. Now, do you see where the pink and the yellow overlap each other? That's the one I'm interested in. So I'm only interested in this piece right here. Okay. And meaning you're on this line and you're on this line at the same time. So that would be your answer right there, where you see both things. In fact, that's probably how I'll tackle these inequalities when I'm doing them. All right, so rewriting it. Okay, so again, I already did the rewriting part of that. So let me just put those in. I wasn't really paying attention. I kind of skipped my space there, but okay. So if you get this, you can rewrite it to be this. Okay. All right, so we're going to solve these, and then we're going to try to put them together to look like that. All right, so here we go. Okay, so let's solve the first one. -3 from both sides. Okay, so that's 2x is greater than -12 divided by 2. X is greater than -6. And feel free to pause the video whenever you need to if you haven't been doing that already. To catch up with me, I tend to write fast because I know how to do these. And again, I want to be able to show you the steps as well, so that's why I'm doing that. But if you have to stop to, time to write, go for it. Okay, so x is greater than -6, and then we're going to solve this one. Add 2, x is less than 8x is less than 32, divided by 8. So x is less than 4. Now, the only thing so basically what you're doing is you're taking this piece and you're kind of flipping it over so the x's overlap each other. So if you kind of can imagine this thing being flipped over, okay, symbol and all, it looks like this. Okay, so picture this being flipped over. Now just write their overlap. So then it'll look like this. Like that. Oops. Okay, it'll look like that. The x, we just lay this one on top of that one. Okay. Alright, so once I do that, I just know I'm going between -6, which is an open dot, and 4, which is an open dot, and then I'm just filling in between. Okay, so when I do that, I just have to write the beginning and end of this interval. And again, since no dots are filled in, everything's a parenthesis. So -6 to 4. And that's it. Okay. So that's how you do those. So this one and this one are very much the same, so I'll just save your time and not do number 8. But 7, just look at 7, see how I did that. If you get stuck, you can always graph this one, do like I did up here with the highlighter. Just don't put the final result, just put the final result on the bottom, on the actual number line versus you can kind of hover above it and make the graphs. So you could try that if that makes you feel better. Okay, so like this whole flipping it over to overlap is confusing to you. You can graph this, which sends the graph this way, and this one sends the graph that way, and then where the two would overlap would be just in this section. This is where you can put on the number line. Okay. Okay, so number 9 and 10 and 11 are all done the same way. 12, I'm going to skip this whole negative divided by a -2, and this is just a mess. I'm just not going to, this is just a headache and that's not worth explaining. So I think I avoid that in your homework as well, so don't worry about that one. Okay, so how do I do this? So the question is how do I do this? So what I would do is think about this as two different problems. So think about this as, what would I do? Let me use my good old handy dandy Amazon card here. Okay, if I were to do this problem, what would be my first step? It would be to add 1, right? Now let me ask you this question. What would my step be if I had to solve that one? Still the same step. Add 1. So do them all at the same time. So add 1, add 1, add 1. So now I get -2 plus 1, which is -1. Leave my symbol. I now have an A here because these are gone. And then I'll put my symbol down. And then 6 plus 1 is 7. And now I already have the thing I need to help plot my stuff. Okay, so I just go to -1, and it looks like a closed dot because the equal to. The 7, which is also a closed dot, is the equal to. And then I draw my line. Okay. Okay, since both of these are equal to's, I got brackets. Okay, and I'm starting at -1, and I'm going to 7. And that's it. Okay, so these are really kind of, they look harder than they are. They really are quite not difficult. If you want to, you could just solve them separately. If it blows your mind, you can just solve them separately. And then just push your answers together and it'll give you the same thing. All right, for instance, I'll just do that. And again, don't, you know, the whole idea is just to get to kind of understand these steps. All right, so let's say you're going to do this question. All right, so see how I just wrote it twice? I wrote this one, and then I wrote this one. So that 3p plus 4 is being used twice. Okay, I solve this by minusing 4. Subtract 4, excuse me. And p is, right, so p less than, 0 is less than p. Okay, solve this one. p is less than 5. Now what you can do is just squish them together so the p's overlap and you get this. And same idea. Okay, so you can either do it what I was doing over here, which is doing everything at once, or split it in two and just, when you get done, just squash them together. Okay, where the p's overlap. Alright, so now we got 0, open dot, 5, open dot, connect. Okay, so these are open dots, so no brackets, and we're going from 0 to 5. And that's it. Okay, so practice the work that I have left for you today, and we'll go over it when I see you tomorrow.